Beyond the Mic with Sean Dillon.
We're joined on the Starline by an award-winning journalist. You've seen his work on NBC News, MSNBC, and now tackles everything on what's shaping the world's economies. As co-host of The Big Take Daily with Bloomberg, we welcome David Gura.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
David, let's go beyond the mic. The Big Take Daily has tackled everything from AI to the boom of Doodles to biotech in China. How does this podcast challenge you on a daily basis?
You know, it really is, as you've just laid out there, a really wide variety of different topics. And we're taking advantage of kind of the breadth of this newsroom, which is a huge global newsroom. And so I'd say a good 2/3 of what we talk about on the podcast comes from our colleagues here at Bloomberg who are bringing us these great stories. The other third really coming from the news of the day, the stories that are driving the agenda here around the world. And so it's a challenge in that every day, I don't know what the topic's going to be. I have to get up to speed on what it is, but I will say I have a great advantage here with a number of colleagues all over the world who are really smart and savvy on their beats and can be just great guests for me day in and day out.
Which episode recently was one that you found specifically interesting?
You know, I had a conversation with John Authors, who's a columnist that we have here who focuses on the markets. He used to be at the Financial Times and is really somebody with broad experience kind of following the ups and downs of financial markets and the economy. And we kind of got at this anxiety that I think exists right now, that we see the kind of swoon in stocks that we've had over the last many months, how much enthusiasm there is for generative AI, what that can mean for markets and the economy. And yet there's this question of sort of when that's going to be translated into sort of real productive gains across the economy. And so we kind of took stock of what that was, he and I, sort of where things stand. If it's right to be concerned about there being a bubble, given how much money is being poured into this handful of companies, 7 major companies here that are focused on AI, if that imbalance is something that causes concern. And I was just sort of taken away by how his perspective, especially his historical perspective, having covered the ups and downs of the markets for so many years, would lead one to think that we're there. And the note that I got from him, the sense that I got from him is that we're not there yet. This isn't yet a bubble, but there we are at a moment here, especially as we turn into 2026, when I think a lot of investors are wanting to see some proof in the pudding. They're going to want to see if all of that investment, if all of that capital pouring into these companies is going to pay off and lead to kind of tangible changes here in these companies and the economy more broadly.
David, was there one story that someone pitched you, weren't sure of, but the final result completely changed your mind?
I'm going to go back to that Doodle episode that you mentioned, and I actually didn't host that. My co-host Sarah Holder did, but I think when that producer came to our meeting and talked about sort of this economy that had grown up around Doodles, these are these kind of Labradoodles, Bernedoodles, these kind of hybrid dog breeds that have become more and more popular. I was inherently skeptical that was a story that had a lot of legs, but when I started to hear about really what's driving that economy, how people are paying $10,000, $15,000 for these puppies, I realized it was kind of a commentary on what consumers are prioritizing in the market today. And it was just sort of a fascinating window into sort of who is spending and who is spending what in this economy right now.
How has your work on the Big Take Daily changed you as a journalist?
You know, prior to this, I hadn't really hosted a show of this length. I worked at NBC, as you mentioned, at NPR. Before that, I was kind of a day in and day out beat reporter covering Wall Street. I'd done live radio and television before. But to spend kind of a sustained amount of time working on these episodes, which are about 20, 25 minutes each and kind of heavily edited and scored and really kind of narrative-driven podcasts has been something radically different from what I've done before. So to sort of frame my thinking around what needs to go into an episode like that, how you tell a story over the course of 20, 25 minutes, recognizing the fact that, you know, for people in this day and age, time is very precious and you really have to make it worth their while. It's been something that I've kind of really welcomed and embraced and really had to learn here over the last couple of years.
David Gura wants you to listen to the Big Take Daily podcast wherever you find podcasts. And he joins us beyond the mic. It's time for the Rocky Nate, David. 8 random questions. Just trust your first instinct. There's no pressure. What was the last baseball game you attended? Where was it? And which 2 teams were playing?
It was the Durham Bulls. I grew up in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and we had no major league team, of course, in North Carolina. So the Durham Bulls was my team. And I believe it was the Rock Shrimp, and it's a team from Eastern North Carolina. I can't remember where they're from, but I was always a minor league ball fan. And every time I go home, I try to catch a game at the Durham Bulls Athletic Park.
How about your favorite performer at the Telluride Bluegrass Festival?
It was Bella Fleck, the banjo player who has been there year in and year out. And as you're getting to, I think I play the fiddle. So I love seeing bluegrass music live. I've always wanted to go to the Telluride Bluegrass Festival. I went a couple of months ago, and seeing Bella Fleck live on stage was really awesome.
Since you brought up that fiddle, your first fiddle was what? And you still have it?
I do. My dad got it at an auction in Mebane, North Carolina. I still have it. It was one that a woman in Raleigh, North Carolina owned. We bought it in an antique auction, I think for like $100. It is a beautiful violin turned fiddle. They always say the joke is, what's the difference between a fiddle and a violin? A fiddle is something you can spill beer on. A violin, you wouldn't want to do that. But it continues to be my fiddle today. I haven't done much to it, and it just sounds great.
Well, let's talk beer. Your favorite type of beer is a lager, ale, pilsner, porter, or what?
IPA.
Time to figure out where you put this. Do you know where your Martha's Vineyard second prize ribbon for baking bread is right now?
I'm confident it is in the basement. I couldn't tell you under what stack of stuff it is, but yes, I won many years ago now second place for banana bread that I baked in the men's quick bank competition at the county fair there. Longest
run you ever did was where? And do you remember your time?
Probably Duke Forest, Durham, North Carolina. And that would have been a 10K, but I cannot remember the time. I'm confident that it was much slower than my brother, who actually ran in college and always put me to shame.
Do you remember your first article at the Cornell Daily Sun?
I do not. But one thing I tried to do when I was a freshman there was draw cartoons as well, and that didn't last long. I think the consensus was that they weren't funny despite my best efforts. But I always loved writing for that paper, and certainly I think where I got my start in journalism.
How about your best memory as an intern for NPR's All Things Considered?
I worked really closely with Robert Siegel, who was a longtime host of that show, and I'll always be grateful for how he took me under his wing, worked with me, could have had me just fetching coffee and unpackaging books and all of that, but really helped me think about reporting, how to be a good reporter, how to prepare for an interview. And something he said to me, which I carry with me today, is if you're going to interview somebody about a book, read the book. And, there are times I can't get through the whole thing, but I really take that to heart. And if I'm going to talk to somebody about something he or she's written, I always try to read it as best I can.
Let's sneak in a couple more with co-host of the Big Take Daily podcast, David Gura, beyond the mic. David, what's the one thing young journalists need to do, in your opinion?
I think they have to persevere. I started in journalism when the media landscape looked radically different. I wouldn't say that it was as great as it was maybe 20, 30 years ago. I had to be kind of entrepreneurial as well, but I know that's the case today. And there are plenty of people who want to be in this profession, want to be in journalism. I know it's tough, but I will say perseverance pays off. And there are places that will hire you to do what you want to do, and just keep at it.
Is there a story that people aren't talking about that they really should?
I think it really has to do with who's doing well and who's not. There's a lot of talk in my line of work about the kind of K-shaped economy, and that means that people who have a lot of means, have a lot of money, are doing pretty well. They're spending, they have homes, maybe they got mortgages at a really low rate. And then at the other end of that K, kind of pointing down, are those who are middle class, lower income, don't have access to all of that, are really trying to eke by. And I think that's going to be kind of a profound issue for this country and really the world going forward here, is how you kind of change that economy so that more people have a shot to do well. And I think that's something that's just going to be front and center for policymakers across the board, certainly those who are making economic policy, but politicians as well, just kind of recognizing that not everybody's doing great here. Plenty of people, I think, are or feel like they are, but it's certainly not an economy in which everybody's sort of sharing the advantages. And how do you change that?
What's the key moment coming up for the future of the world?
That's a great question. I mean, where I sit, kind of focusing on business and the economy, not exclusively, but a lot, it's who the president's going to pick to be the next chair of the Federal Reserve. And this is something he's really been focused on, as I'm sure you know, for many months. He hasn't been happy with Jerome Powell, who he picked to head the Fed during his first term. He's tried to get rid of him, tried to have step aside. He now has this opportunity to appoint his successor, and he's given us kind of a short list of 5 people. But I think a lot of the future of the economy in the U.S. is going to be determined by who's running the Fed, how they deal with inflation and unemployment. So I think that pick, which I think we expect to come here in the next few days, is going to be really critical.
Time for one big question with David Gura beyond the mic. David, who is the one person not related to you who influenced you as a journalist and you hope you make proud every day?
I think back on, I said I started my journalism career at Cornell, the Cornell Daily Sun, but it was really in high school. I had Mimi Cross was the high school journalism advisor. She was an English teacher. And I remember when I was a freshman, I really wanted to get on the paper. I couldn't get on the paper till I was a junior, but she's somebody who put up with a lot of my pestering. I just loved the fact that, I could write something, others would read it, could cause a stir, could cause people to talk. And she's somebody who I think recognized early on that I maybe had maybe not a gift, but ability here, and encouraged that. And I think I carried that through as I went to college and into my career after that.
His dad gave him his first fiddle, loves the delicious IPA, and was almost a cartoonist. David Gura, wants you to listen to the Big Take Daily Podcast, wherever you find podcasts. David, thanks for taking the time to talk with us today.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate it.
And that, my friends, is a Beyond the Mic shortcut.
If you're enjoying these conversations, please check out another Beyond the Mic episode to find more actors, artists, and people you need to know. We'd also appreciate a like and subscribe on the Good Pods app.